Welcome back, everyone. This is Captain Rex. This is the Ready, Set, Live podcast. I'm so glad that you're with us today. I have a special guest, and I always have special guests on my show. Thanks for joining us and spending some of your time with us today. We're focusing on driving your potential, boosting your confidence through fulfilling your passion and fulfilling your purpose. So today, my guest is Joe Beilke. Joe Beilke is not a lifelong friend, but a very true, good, long friend of mine. We come from a fire service background, and Joe and I used to work together. And Joe has been a volunteer fireman for almost 20 years and has come a long way through the fire service. I've always gone to him for some mentorship and counsel because he has some sage words of advice in some difficult times in my life. Has also been the pleasure of being my realtor for our last house, and has some networking opportunities in the real estate field that I'm sure he's excited to talk about. But Joe is very relatable to many people for many reasons. But I'm glad to have you on today, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Good to see you again. With everything in the world going on right now, it's incredible that you can find time in your schedule to have a break and come join us today on the show. So thanks a lot.
No problem. I'm glad to be here.
So for some of my listeners that want to get to know you a little bit better, what is it? Can you just give us a little bit about Joe and your efforts and your wife Sarah? What is it that you're doing, and just a little bit about your background and about what you're doing?
Well, like you said earlier, I started out in the fire service when I was 18 years old, and my focus really wasn't chasing girls as much back then. So my wife Sarah came later in life. But honestly, I started the fire service and, I want to be the best of both worlds. I wanted to be a police officer, and then and then be a volunteer fireman. Well, that didn't happen. I ended up volunteering for 20 plus years, and I got hired on with the DOD fire back in 2005. So I just got my 15 years last month. But that was, my way to basically trade time for money, to get paid. But I've always been the kind of person that wants something else. So I did some investment properties in Baltimore, and just kind of got tired of the sick and cold, and met my wife Sarah and about 9 years ago, and we relocated to Florida. I transferred to the naval base down here. She worked for corporate America. I did about a year in the fire department down here, and said, you know what, I think I'm going to expand my real estate investing to real estate sales and service sales and sales. So I got involved with one of the larger real estate companies here in Florida, and I've been doing that now since 2014, I believe. So about 6 years. And investment properties, mentoring some younger investors a little bit here around town here, looking at properties, rentals, flips, the whole 9 yards. And just helping you out, sell your property, helping other firefighters out, doing things like that. Now we have ventured on to the next step, and Sarah, my wife, and two partners, we're breaking off here in the near future to start our own brokerage and expand our business model.
Awesome. Thanks for that introduction. And you can relate to many people, not only being in the fire service, but also in the industry of real estate. And so, but you got something special, Joe. I've always noticed this about you, that you have the hustle and you have the grind, and you understand that just being at a job isn't good enough, right? And you have something in you that has a drive, something that told you there's got to be something more. And so what you did is you dug inside yourself and you decided to pursue one of your passions and venture off into real estate. And look what it's done for you. It's opened up another avenue to move into real estate investments, and then also now a separate brokerage. And then now you mentioned even mentoring other real estate agents. So it's not just one thing that you're good at. There's many things, and that's because you've decided to rise up, to do a few things. And this is gonna segue into the topics today. We're still talking about the 5 tenets. And what I like to discuss is just the definition of a tenet is a core belief for a company or an organization, or in this case, for finding out your purpose and potential in life. This podcast is in the individual. What's the tenet, a core tenet somebody can adhere to as an individual? Because it's all about finding our purpose in life. And our greatness. And I hear that your dog.
Yeah, Samson's going crazy. I think he might see someone outside. Yep.
Tell Sam says hi. That's our dog, by the way. So really quickly, we're just going to run through the 5 tenets, right? We're talking about rising above mediocrity, and we're talking about elevating our standards. We're talking about visualizing, being able to visualize the best versions of. We're talking about living up to our highest potential and why that's important, especially now. And then also, once we have made the decision to rise above all your mediocrity, rise above and elevate your standards and visualizing, the best versions of ourselves, we're talking about living out our true purpose and our potential, and then giving purpose for that potential. The very end, the very bookend of our talk today will be about finding that laser focus and purpose. So I'm really excited to run through these topics with you today. In light of what's been happening in the world, there's 50 million people out of work, and the anxiety is on the rise, depression, suicides, domestic violence, people are getting evicted. I mean, there's a lot of craziness in the world right now. A lot of people are scared and upset, and they need to focus on, things that matter to them, because living a life of mediocrity will get you nowhere. And it's especially important now to not live a life of mediocrity, for people to invest in themselves. I want you to talk about, Joe, what is it that you can share with us, why it's important to rise above mediocrity, since it's everywhere?
You mentioned, 50 million people out of work right now due to the COVID pandemic. But, the government has stepped in and basically, done some good. I'm not going to try to get political here or pick sides by any stretch of the mean. But, one thing I have noticed is that there's a lot of people out there who are making more money now because of the supplemental for unemployment. And, that right there is, and for mediocrity, it's just enough. They're not rising above. They're not taking a stance or finding something new. And they're being, they don't have a surplus, but they're not struggling. And so that's, the mediocrity of their life is, I'm keeping up with, their core friends, their group, the people in their nest. So, I think there's a problem there, the lack of drive from a lot of people. So I guess maybe we'll get a little off of the question, but, the question I think is like, why do people take the next step? People like yourself encouraging people. Like, I remember hearing a story about a gentleman at, I believe it was a meeting you had with a cancer group meeting,
Yeah.
and you took the step to talk to that person, and that pushed them forward.
Yeah.
So that means a lot. And I think that's what really is what people need to look at, is like, what is going to move them to get above mediocrity. And it's something inside. And sometimes it needs a voice from someone else that's not being derogatory or being negative. It's more about lifting them up.
That's a great way to put it. Thanks for that answer, Joe. I know that what you've shared has related with a lot of people, and this has come to pass. It's not come to stay. And so for those of my audience or listeners that may have felt an additional level of comfort because the government stepped in, and like I said, not to get political, but that is not the norm. This is the exception to life, where being dependent on someone else to fulfill your needs is not the definition of living your best self. It's depending on somebody else and some agency to fulfill your greatness. And there's no limit on human potential. There's absolutely no limit on human potential. And I think, like you said, what keeps people stuck is they're not able to see that there's anything outside of mediocrity. And so that's how they remain stuck. So I guess the first key from this is just to be aware that there's another area outside of the normal mediocrity. And an awareness is the first step to change. You have to be aware of your surroundings and define that, what happened for me is that once I was aware and I became unhappy with, the current mediocrity, I said, enough is enough. People have to get to that point. And now is as good as time as ever to reevaluate, as we take a look at our goals and dreams, to reevaluate whether or not life is defining in a way that we could, change and we could do something about it. So that's a very awesome point of view. And I never really looked at it like that, because, this day and age is pointing out a lot of different perspectives for a lot of people. So, but awareness is key. And, and once people are aware that there's mediocrity, Well, if they're at that level, that means that there's got to be another level, right? There's got to be either higher or lower. And as you know, fire service, we might as well climb that ladder. And as far as that analogy goes, we're talking about elevating our standards. So you had a volunteer position. You had a goal to go to two different areas of industry, you know, police and fire. Turns out that more of the volunteering was a calling on your heart because you were, again, you were helping you were helping people, you know, and you weren't getting paid for it. And you still don't get paid for that. That's very, very honorable. So there was something in you, Joe, that decided to elevate your standards to be able to provide something out of the passions of your heart to fulfill. And it's something that you're so good at, but you know, people will pay you anyway. And it's provided a very lucrative career for you, which obviously gave you the time that you didn't want to just trade money for dollars. You wanted to, you know, you wanted to reach out and do something else with your potential. So talk to us about elevating your standards. What did it for you to elevate your standards to become more than just a clocked in employee?
Well, I mean, really, I didn't want to be mediocre. I didn't want to keep up the Joneses. I wanted to, and I want to continue to basically strive for the next level. For me, money doesn't mean happiness, but money does provide something that can lead toward that, such as traveling, seeing the world, giving back, being, you know, donating, helping people along the line. So to elevate my standard, I've had to find a way to keep me jump started consistently. When I found myself taking a step and then been basically staying there for, you know, a couple months. Okay, Joe, take a step back, but don't take a step down. And let's reevaluate, let's set our goals again, and let's move forward again. Let's pick up a new book. Let's, you know, listen to different podcasts. Let's watch some more YouTube videos. Let's look at different adventures. Let's see what we can do to do things, look at things differently, or like Apple likes to say, think different. So then, you know, that's how I would continue to elevate my personal standard by saying, okay, you know, like last year, I think I posted on Facebook that I read 20 books. I don't think I've read 20 books in my entire life up until 2019. And in 2019 through, I guess it was July of 2020, 20 books.
That's
That
awesome.
blows my mind. But they keep me motivated because it gives me a lot of different points of views, and it keeps me elevating myself to be better. And I think that a lot of people need to find something. It may not be books, it may not be podcasts, it may be something different. And people can sit out there and say, what can I do to make myself better? Because when you're happy, you're your best self.
Absolutely. I mean, that's great because, you know, a couple of things here, you know, what you said going back to, and reading is the key. Obviously, I've been saying that for years, and, you know, we feed off each other and trade book lists and everything. And, but that's true. I mean, 1% of the US population owns a library card when libraries were still a thing. But, you know, now
Mhm.
list and Amazon, you know, all your, everything's online. We've gone from brick and mortar to click and order. And so is online, 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 and we're forced as a society now, and we can't. Now's not the time to just be forced into indoors and then shelter away, because, like you said, you know, it's like what you did to take a look at jump starting. You use that word jumpstart you, jumpstart your life. That's almost it gave me the analogy that how many people are just living their lives as a dead battery. You know, they may die at
Right.
5, but they don't actually get buried until 65 or 70. They're living their whole lives without producing any of the fruits of their own passions. And that passion comes from fulfilling people's potential. And we've grown to understand that. And that is what makes me happy in life. And if you can't be happy, there's really nothing else left. And so in a time that's so depressing, it's important now more than ever to find out what makes a person happy, and it begins by elevating your standards and realizing there's another level. And it's like the quote that says, you know, you have to do what you can with what you have from where you are and never be satisfied. Part of it, you just can't be satisfied. I mean, you read 20 books. What did it make you feel like doing? Reading another 20 books, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
when I started to read, I found out how much I did not know. And that keeps me coming back reading for more. And I have to say that there are people that when you start to have a higher vision of yourself, there are some people that are going to latch on and support, but there are also going to be a lot of people that reveal their true intentions in nature of where they fit in a person's life. And they either raise up to your standards because they're meant to be there and meant to go with you, or they're going to fall away, laugh at you, poke fun, and call you names and say that nothing in another is possible and you're crazy. But that's only further proof that what you're doing is the right thing. And one of my favorite quotes is by Jay Samit. He says, he's an author. He says, observe the masses and run the other way.
Absolutely.
That salmon swimming upstream, because a life of mediocrity is always led by accepting some conditions for what they are and not for what they could be. And so it's important to surround yourself with people that believe in your idea. And when you have an idea and you have a passion, because we all have it, when you go to pursue it, the people that need to be there, they'll come in due time. So I want to encourage our listeners to follow that and to find out what that is, especially now. So that's a great response. I want to talk about a little bit. So once people have gotten to this point, okay, this is kind of visionary up to this point. They've risen above mediocrity. They've consciously made a decision to do something. Then they said, I want to take a look at my standards. I want to elevate above where I am, and I want to go to where I could be. All right. So when they talk about where they could be and where they should be, this is all taking place in their head. This is a visualization technique. When people visualize, there's no product or no idea or no patent, or there's nothing that exists in this world without being first a thought in somebody's head. You mentioned the Apple, right? The iPhone. This was a concept in somebody's head before it came into fruition, before it was something. So all companies, all stores, all cars, all buildings, all houses, they all start with a blueprint. So when I talk about this next level of visualizing, shed some light on how people can, or why it's even important for people to form that blueprint in their head there, to visualize the best version. Why can't they just be the best version of themselves why do they have to visualize it first?
Well, what's funny is when I was reading the show notes and after listening to some other podcasts about this specific topic, the visualizing the best version of yourself, the first thing that came to mind was, when did we stop doing that?
Ooh, yeah.
And that being visualizing ourselves, because I don't know how many times I can remember thinking back when I was a kid, what do I want to be? What do I want to strive to? Like, at what point in life did we stop thinking like that? Like having these dreams and goals. And, it doesn't matter how old you are. If you elevate your standard to make yourself better, then that standard will allow you to visualize and move toward that next step and, or the next dream. Like, it doesn't have to be a financial goal. It could be like, I want to be able to run across the Flagler Beach Bridge from top to back and forth without stopping. Today I made it about a third the way. I made it about in steps. I'm working towards it. I'm visualizing my best self, but the next goal may be to have, maybe I want to buy a multifamily complex down in the Keys, or maybe I want to have a cabin in the mountains. These are dreams that I think that people stop at some point in time. They stop asking themselves, like, they just, again, it became mediocre. And I think the best way I think people can do that, or maybe not the best way they can do it, is ask themselves why they stopped dreaming. And that's how I answered the question. I said, what? When I was a kid, I wanted to be a baseball player. I wasn't good enough. Then I wanted to be a cop. I joined the fire department. I wanted to own real estate property. I bought one. I wanted to start a real estate company. I'm working on that now. I never stopped dreaming. And I think that's the best thing people need to say is, they need to continue to dream. And that way you can visualize your next steps in life.
That's an amazing answer. And it's so true. You just led me down a path in my mind, because, when did people stop dreaming? Okay. I would have to say that it was probably around age 4 or 5 for most people. Because when if you look at a kid that's age 4 or less, they are innately, naturally, they're happy, they're wondrous, they're curious about the world. And when they're in their element, they just go from thing to thing to thing, and they're just happy about everything, because that's who they are naturally. They have that gift of happiness inside. Kids are not unless they don't get their milk, or if they don't get that, push and pull of getting things from life. I'm usually mommy and daddy or whoever's the guardian or whatever. But then after age 4 or 5, it's interesting because as a society, we all are guilty of providing this negative societal belief that child, that person is not able to accomplish something. And by age 4 years old, I think it's like kids have heard the word no like 40,000 times in their life by age 4. So they have this belief, they have this preconceived notion of negativity. And most people are so negative, they have to hear no, they have to say no 7 times before they say yes to anything. We're preconceived by society to believe that things are not possible, that people are not smart enough, that they don't have the money, they don't have the education, they don't know the contacts, they don't have the expertise. They're no, 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 no. And there's so many no's in life. But what if we started telling ourselves yes? This is where the dream process kicks in. And it's been said that 15 minutes of visualization is more productive than 16 hours of hard labor. So there's your time for dollars right there. If you're stuck, if any of my listeners are stuck just trading time for a job, fulfilling somebody else's dream, it's because you're not doing the dreaming. Your boss did the dreaming, and he's providing you with the 16 hours of labor opportunity, if that's what you want to call it, to fulfill his dream. But guess what? You have a dream. When you mentioned, what do I want to be when I grow up? Most people now, probably adults, are probably not in life now what they were when they were asked that when we were kids. And that may be, and I've said this before, that simple question to ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And this is about to get deep right here, right now. Let me just when we ask, as parents and adults, when we ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? That, I think, and I just had a revelation about this, I think that makes the kid think that he has to be something else. Like society's, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? What are you going to be? As if what the kid is already is not what they could be, what they should be. We should really ask kids, what are you going to be with what you are? Because all you are is all that's necessary to succeed in life. I mean, you hear people that have no arms, no legs, and they're motivational speakers. They travel all the world and make millions of dollars. What about Spud Webb, who was 5'0" and was in the NBA? What about, the greatest of the greats in any field, but they have some sort of limiting challenge that they've denied and overcome. If these people in the world didn't exist, then only the tall could play basketball, and only the powerful could play football, and only the intelligent can invent computers, and there's onlys. It's not that way at all. I mean, people come from nothing and achieve everything, and that's only possible is because they told themselves that there's a better version of what they're producing, and that's what I encourage my listeners to do.
I heard a story recently about a kid who was constantly he never did good. He always was striking out when he was up to bat, and he consistently missed pop-up flies. So, they moved him to the outfield when he was younger because the kids in his age group couldn't hit balls that far, so the chances of him having to catch a pop-up was low. And his parents would always encourage him to do better and strive and practice. But what it did was it stifled him to meet their expectations versus let him figure out. He loved the game, but he needed to figure out where he played best at. And they finally stopped badgering him almost in a way. Like they said, look, let's just let him play, let him have fun. And, over the years, he got better and ended up going All-American because he figured out that, he can't catch pop-ups, but you know what he could do? He could stretch. Great first baseman. What he could do, was awesome, was he couldn't hit a curveball. But when they matched him up against pitchers that could only throw knuckles and fastballs, he hit him out of the park constantly. So you had to play to his strengths. And the coach finally visualized for him his strengths without people trying to set expectations for him. And I think that's part of it. You have to let the kid visualize where they're going to succeed, or let anyone visualize where they're going to succeed. Don't hold them down or don't push them in the wrong direction. Let their potential come out.
As a society, we would do a lot of justice to our further generations if we promoted when people have an idea, when people have a visualization, even though it's different. Let me tell you a quick story. There was a soccer player in, I believe it was Spain, and he was really good. I think he was professional. And he had a really bad injury, which ended his soccer career. But when he was recuperating in the hospital, he asked the nurse for a guitar, and he started to play guitar and he started to sing. And then his friends and people around him that were closest to him just started saying, "You're too old for this. You don't have what it takes. You can never do this. Why even bother?" But I tell you, when he stuck to that passion, nobody can deny that Julio Iglesias made the right choice to pick. Okay, so when people have a passion, let them be who they are, and let them further. You never know the benefits that will come about in society because people have made the decision to do something like that. And in sports analogies, there's plenty of them where people have overcome, even autistic kids making, tremendous impact on the world based on their abilities that they have been not as good as everyone else, but because they had passion. And there's another story that I won't go into now, but there's many of those stories like that have to do with people visualizing the best versions of themselves, and then they seize their moment and they take it on to their greatness, and then they affect others. So it takes work, and courage is part of the work. And when you have a dream, you will be tested for authenticity, but you also you're going to face some opposition. And it's continuous. Winston Churchill said, "Continuous effort, not strength or intelligence. It's going to be the key to unlocking our potential." And so this active process of living up to our highest potential, it takes work. So obviously you didn't just clock in and clock out. You went to work after you. So talk about living up to your highest potential.
Well, that's a really tough question, because I thought about answering this question, and then I looked at the next one. The next one you're going to ask me, I know, is about giving purpose, and I think the two kind of tie together. And I think my potential is based upon my purpose. And if my purpose is to give back, or help people transition through sales, or provide housing for people, as in rental income and landlording, things like that, I had to figure out where that potential for me is most beneficial to keep me happy. Because I think sometimes, there's people out there who've got a lot of potential. Let's look at the fire service. There's some people out there who've got a lot of potential, but they're not the kind of person you want to lead. So that's not, they've got potential to do that. They've got the ability to do it, but there's something that's missing. And that sometimes what's missing is purpose. So those two to me can coincide a lot. I doesn't think it hurts to have heroes. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because sometimes that hero that you want is the potential you're trying to strive for. If that makes any sense. I think we forget about that.
I have a cousin who's a personal trainer down here in Miami, and he's very successful. But one of his favorite quotes is that he looks at, he's like, work so hard. And this guy is a hustle hard worker when it comes to personal training. He's one of the best in Miami. Or I'd say in the world. He's amazing. And, it's hustle hard enough to where your competitors, your idols become your competitors, where you're going to get on, but that takes personal growth. You can't just look at a hero and say, "Oh, that's a hero. I could never compete." But that gives you, when we look up to Superman, we look up to Batman, we look up to all these superheroes as kids, it's because we want to fly. We want to beat up the bad guy. We want to do all these things, but we have to tell ourselves that it's possible. We just have to admit that we're the one. And early on in my business career, we talked about a goal for financial success. It was, everybody wants to make six figures. I want to make six figures. They almost throw it around without knowing how many figures it is. 6 figures is $100,000 minimum. And I decided I want to make $100,000 a year. And when I just made that decision, it was harder to tell myself that I could do it than it was to actually do it. Because in the same year, I doubled it and then tripled it. Now, how is that I can go from leading a hourly job, before the fire service, where it was just trading time for dollars and fulfilling somebody else's dream, to the moment I believed in myself. And then it took me to a level that I never thought was possible. But then I said, I'm going to do it. And not only did I do it, I did it twice and then repeated it a third time. And the change has to happen, because it's been said, it doesn't matter what happens around you, and it only happens what matters inside of you. And when people make that choice, that's when they're going to be able to live up to their highest potential. So, and they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one thing is, one thing that people lack are goal setting. A lot of people, and I was horrible at doing that, and I have to credit Phil Rycraft, if he's listening, for making me set goals back in 2013, to help me get down the line. I think that when you set your goals, then you can reach your highest potential. That's one of the biggest factors I think people seem to forget, that you need to set yearly, daily. I mean, every single week I have a list of things I want to get done. If I don't get it done, or I don't add something to it before by midweek, then I don't feel like I'm not to my highest potential.
Goal setting is so important. And offline, you may have heard of this, but MIT or Harvard Business Academy, the Masters of Business, the MBA program at Harvard, did a study in 1979, I believe it was 1979, Harvard Business Academy. And they did a study, and they based the study based on one question. Do you have goals? Do you write them down? 87% of the population of the graduates, they had no goals. The other 12%, no, the other amount, I think, was like 10%. They had goals, but they did not write them down. And then the top 3% had goals and they wrote them down. That was the important distinction. So they followed these graduates 10 years later. And in I believe it was 1989, it's called the Harvard Business Academy study about goals. 10 years later, the people that did not write any goals down, they obviously weren't doing as well as the ones that did have goals, right? So the ones that had goals were making twice as much money as the ones that did not have a goal and they did not write them down. But what's interesting,
I'm reading about that.
What's interesting is the ones that did have goals and they took the step to write their goals down, they were making 10 times as much money as the rest of the graduating class combined. 10 times more combination of all of them. And so that is the power of goal setting. If you want something you want to achieve in life, write your goal down. Write it down. Have a goal, and then write it down. And then take another step. Recite it to yourself 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night. And I go on to other topics about the subconscious. Subconscious doesn't care if you're a massive success in life or if you're a total flop, if you're a total failure. If you feed your mind with success, and that real estate, you're in real estate, the most important real estate is the 6 inches between people's ears. If people start to visualize themselves and they feed themselves with good information, they're going to take action steps. Their subconscious will not care whether you're a successful or if you're a failure. And so we have the power to think ourselves into any life that we want. And that's the power of visualization, but it's also living up to our highest potential. So thank you so much for that, Joe. I thank you for your time today.
One thing I would like to add to that, though, I like to add is that there's a difference between goals and lists.
Yeah.
There's people who will say, well, I do write my goals down. I have a list of things to do. And I said, there's a difference there. Like, I have a list every week, but my goal is to complete that list. And so my weekly goals are to continue to finish my list, then my monthly and 6 month and yearly and 5 and 10 year. I think people need to know the distinction between a list and a goal is very important too, because if they don't know the difference, they'll never reach the next step.
A goal without an action plan is just a wish list.
Yes.
People say, I want to be a millionaire. Okay. How do you plan to become a millionaire? Well, I don't know. I want $1 million. Well, people get paid not by the hour. They get paid by their value that they bring to the hour. So if you sweep a floor for McDonald's, you get paid minimum wage. But if you whistle while you sweep a floor for McDonald's, you get paid minimum wage plus some money. So it's all in your value. And this is what we have to find out now with our purpose and our potential is determining our value. And if you're surrounded with people who don't value your personal value. You got to find people that can see in you what you don't see for yourself. You have to look at everybody with the eyes of Girder that says, look at a man for who he is, and he only gets worse. But if you look at a man for what he could be, then the man becomes what he should be. And that's how we should treat everybody. People have potential. Don't limit them for what they're capable of, because you're only limiting yourself for what you're capable of. So, Joe, I want to thank you so much for your time today. And for
thank you, man. Appreciate being on here.
It's been a pleasure, brother. And I just want to remind our audience, follow us up on social media and all of our channels. They're in below, up top below, and on one of the links, one of the social medias that's going out today. But I want to remind you, life isn't found between the isms and the schisms of life. It's time to quit the paralysis of analysis and jump in with your dreams. Both feet, go all in. There's no other way. You can't half-ass, especially now. And that's gonna put you further back into a life of mediocrity, and that doesn't deserve you anything of the life that you are worth, because everybody has worth. And I'm here. If you don't believe in yourself, I'm telling you, Rex Witkamp, Joe Beilke, we believe in you and for what you're capable of. So stop telling yourself that you can't achieve massive success in your life. Stop telling yourself that you can't do it. And what I have to say is, with a strict warning, that once you follow your dream, you will be tested for the authenticity for that dream. Most people, they don't fail in life because they aim too high and miss. They aim too low and they hit. So don't aim low with your dreams. Aim high. If your dream isn't big enough to scare you, you need to dream bigger. Dream bigger. And so
Right.
We're talking about the 5 tenets today, Joe. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'm going to talk to you soon.
Thanks, Rex. Appreciate being on here, man. And thank you to our listeners.
Yeah, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.